The last two sections of Unit 6 are all about migrations. I don't know you, but there's a good chance that your people got to where they are now during this time period. Let's check my 23andMe to see where I came from. Not gonna lie, not super surprised here. But of the ancestors I can actually trace, some of them have been here for longer than I can research, but others of them arrived in this period. They migrated to the United States. Today we review the global migrations of the modern period. So many people are moving around the planet that it forever changed the makeup of multiple locations around the globe. By the way, if this migration stuff fascinates you, take AP Human Geography. It's basically all they talk about. But for today's review, let's focus on a simple set of terms: push factors and pull factors. These are just ways of describing why people are migrating. By the way, don't say travel or visit or went. Use your words, kids. Say migrate. Words have meaning. When you migrate, you are going there to stay. You are not coming right back. So people are migrating, but why? Some are pushed out. Think of bad things happening back home, like the potato famine or the Taiping rebellion. Some are pulled into a country. Think of job opportunities or large urban centers. So push factors push you out, and pull factors pull you in. Here's a map. You can see there's a ton of people migrating to a ton of places. I'm not sure which ones your teacher went over, but there's a few easy ones to remember. First, the Irish migration to the United States. Due to the potato famine, 1 million Irish died and another 1 million were pushed to the United States. Overall, the population in Ireland fell by 25%. Second, Chinese immigration to the United States. The Chinese call the 1800s the century of humiliation. Why? Rewatch the last 10 episodes and all the ads that accompany them. Opium Wars, Taiping Rebellion, Sino-Japanese War, Boxer Rebellion. I wouldn't even call these push factors, these are shove factors. So you may be pushed out of your country for internal reasons. But from there, you're pulled to another country based on the opportunities present there. And China has a few big options: the United States and Australia. Both offered entry-level manual labor jobs either in mining or railroad building. Now, I know I just told you that migrations means you don't come back, but there are migrant laborers as well. Think of them as people who migrate for certain parts of the year before returning home for other parts of the year. A huge chunk of the American agricultural industry is farmed by migrant laborers. But the best example here are Italian industrial workers who were pushed out by warfare and pulled in by job opportunities in Argentina. When Argentina got its current constitution back in 1853, the 25th article specifically says there can be no barriers to immigration. As many Italians were pushed out of Italy from wars, they were pulled to Argentina. How many? From 1888 to 1920, 2 million. Today, that means that 63% of all Argentinians have some amount of Italian ancestry. Don't believe me? The two most famous Argentinians, maybe of all time, maybe the two most recognizable people on the planet, are both Argentinians of Italian ancestry. Both Messi and Pope Francis were born in Argentina from Italian descent. So those are the causes behind the migration. But what about the effects? First effect, enclaves. Let me show you a picture of Washington, D.C. Oh, sorry. That's China. My bad. No, wait. That's an ethnic enclave in Washington, D.C., known as Chinatown. Cities all around the world have places like this. When the migrants move to another country, whether pushed or pulled, they flock to the jobs. And that means to the cities. And while living in the cities, they live near people they're familiar with. Whether it's Polish Hill in Pittsburgh, or Little Italy in New York City, or Chinatown in Washington, D.C., or even Indians living in South Africa. Enclaves are all around you. The second big effect of migration is xenophobia. Xenophobia is the fear or dislike of people from a different country. Remember those first two push examples we went over? Well, both the Irish and the Chinese faced extreme xenophobia once they arrived here in the United States. The most famous example of xenophobia is probably the Chinese Exclusion Act in the United States. It's the only time the U.S. government implemented a law to restrict the migration of people from a specific country. But this isn't U.S. history. We need a world history example. So let's look at the White Australia policy. It's as bad as it sounds. This is where the Australian government sought to stop the migration of Asian and Pacific Islanders to Australia. This policy followed the usual trend of blaming all of society's ills on one minority. Take a look at this cartoon. The Mongolian octopus brings cheap labor, they'll take your jobs; robbery, they'll steal your stuff; bribery, they'll corrupt you; opium, they'll get you addicted to drugs; smallpox, they'll spread disease; immorality, which looks like prostitution from this cartoon, I'm assuming. And before we leave, just know, no matter who you are or where you are, odds are at some point your ancestors we're migrants. So when you see people online complaining about immigration or being xenophobic towards this group or that group, just know they're talking about all of us. We are all migrants.
Oh, Unit 6 is the worst.
But we can't let this terrible unit go without crowning an MVP. I'll see you tomorrow.